Welcome everybody to another edition of the Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam. Let's get into this. So, the NFL Combine starts today. Today is the official start of the offseason because you're starting to get your draft talk going, really starting to get a deep dive into prospects. All the All-Star games are over. The East West Shrine game, the Senior Bowl, the HBCU game, which is new. They have all these showcases that they do all over now. Then you have a combine. Then you have pro days. Then you have to designate the franchise tag. And then you have pro days throughout all of March and free agency. It's going to be a fantastic time the next few months for the NFL, especially now until April, late April, where the draft is happening, because that's when we're going to find out what's really happening. But with the combine, a few things happen. One, you get to see prospects like Jalen Hurts. We get to see how fast he really is, because that's going to move him up draft boards. I know that there's some weaknesses in his game with route tree running, and he's only ran a few routes here and there. Sometimes that happens in college. You don't get the full route tree because you're an explosive player, which he was. You're going to see, guys like Will Levis and Thaddeus Young possibly, and C.J. Stroud throw the football. You're going to see guys like Drew Sanders. How can he move up the draft boards? Cedric Tillman, where will he go? Some of the sleepers that are out there. There's a receiver from Cincinnati, Zay Jones. He's 10 pounds heavier. What will he run at? What would that extra weight on? So there's a lot of fun stuff that's going to be happening, and a lot of talk that we're going to be talking. Who the Giants are interested in. This is where you're going to get tabs on who they're following. Heard they're doing homework on a lot of different guys, quarterbacks included. You're going to hear a lot about free agency. Free agency is going to happen because, next Tuesday, the franchise tags are going on. So you're going to hear a lot about that. The trades usually take place now because guys are there for a week. All the scouts, Brian Daboll's bringing his whole coaching staff down, which is good because they can learn the players firsthand that they possibly will be working with down the road in a few months. Giants training opens up in April. They open their camps in April and May to start bringing in players. Not as early as, teams that have had their coaches change, but they get to be in late April, early May to kind of get their feet wet on the offseason program. And that brings us to the Giant free agency. There hasn't been much movement yet. The Giants are still in talks with Barkley, still in talks with Daniel Jones. Let's start with him first. I don't think he's going to get the astronomical numbers he's asking, whether that's $45 million. I think it's going to be 32 to $35 million at best. Personally, if I was Joe Schoen, I would put him on the franchise tag and let him see if he can get a better deal out there, right? Because then you're netting yourself 2 first-round picks. And B, let's be realistic. For 1 second, all Daniel Jones hate aside, all bias aside, he's only played one good season. One really good, hey, you eliminated the turnovers, we think you're a competent player, that was this year. So for me, did he stay healthy? He got a little banged up, but we'll see. He gets banged up every year. We'll see now if he becomes the guy that they think. Putting the franchise tag on him actually is a smart move business-wise, because then you don't have to dump a lot of money in case he fails, right? Or a short-term deal. It works if you can't get, he goes no to the franchise tag and Buck says, hey, listen, we'll give you a short-term deal. We're worth $66 million, right? That's $32 million of franchise tags given. Just because you want to be able to get out of the contract if he fails, right? Guys like Kirk Cousins, the Vikings took a chance on him, but he already threw for 4,000 yards with the Redskins the year prior. So he got a guaranteed deal. And he's been producing ever since there. You may hate him, but that's true. His numbers don't lie. He's done well. Yes, I know he has this guy and that guy, but those don't always equate to wins. Look at Kirk Cousins, for example. That hasn't won him a lot of games. This year was the first time his offense really was dominant force this year. His defense usually was dominant, and his offense kind of struggled. This year he had a better offense overall. Derek Carr. Another guy out there. Now, that's a guy, if I'm Daniel Jones, I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson because I'm not on that level. I didn't get an MVP. I didn't get to be in the divisional games as much. Yeah, sure, I was in one playoff run, but Lamar Jackson's had a couple playoff runs and has carried teams to the playoffs many times. And this year would have carried him back in if he hadn't got injured this season, and they probably beat the Bengals with Lamar Jackson as opposed to Tyler Huntley. So just if I'm Daniel Jones, look at what Carr and Garoppolo are getting, because that's probably the quarterbacks that we're talking about here. I think Carr would be the top of the market. I think Garoppolo is right in between. You can argue that they're kind of on the similar playing field. Now, I believe in production, so I would put Jimmy slightly ahead of him. Do I want Jimmy G as my quarterback? No. I don't really even want Daniel as my quarterback. That's a different story. I'm just telling you right now that if you were to do business, that's the guy you're probably going to look at. And probably Derek Carr. Now, Derek might get slightly more money because he's done a little bit more with his career. He's thrown for 4,000 yards. You can tell me all the players that he's played with and the things that he's done. Bottom line is your resume gets you paid. Okay? Your resume gets you paid. It's true. And a lot of guys don't get paid off of 1 year. I mean, Barkley had a 5th-year option. 3 out of his 5 years, he's gone over 1,000 yards. 2 out of those 5 years, he's on 1,300 yards. Right? He's averaged in the 2 years that he's played over 16 games, 1,300 yards in the season. What do averages mean? Averages don't mean, averages aren't built for, stats are not just built for fantasy. Fantasy has ruined what stats really are. Stats are the production. Think of production maybe on like an assembly line. How many bottles of detergent can you push through the line? Some guys and gals do it faster than others, right? If you're averaging, 8 bottles a shift, that's 1 bottle an hour to fill up, and another guy's doing double time, well, guess what? They're going to mark you, this guy does more and gets paid your salary. You know what I mean? Why are we going to give you more money? If you want a good example, your resume. Your resume is your ticket in. Now, you could look at names and names on a paper and say, well, I like this guy's name better than that guy's name. It doesn't equate to production. What you're looking at is, hey, what has he done? How long has he done it, and how many years has he done it? Daniel Jones right now has a 1 season that we all think is, I don't think, but a lot of people think is his best year production-wise, which it was, I guess you could say, passing, receiver, touchdown-wise, no. But what that means is like, do you want to sign a guy who hasn't proven to you at back-to-back years that he can do? Back-to-back years, he's had back-to-back bad seasons. You can blame the coaching staff and whatnot, but it's fact. This year, he had a good season with the coaching staff. Let's take it to another level. Let's see if we can do it again. We're going to put the pieces in place for you. Let's see if we can do it again. But Daniel, we're going to take this slow. We're going to give you the franchise tag. We're going to see what happens next year. I mean, because if you reverse the records right now, if you reverse them and put them at 6-9-1, and the Giants are in the top whatever, now not 25, they're now at 15, let's say, round that number. Probably a little less than the Jets. The Jets are, they won 7 games, so maybe they would be a little less than the Jets. So we're talking about maybe outside the top 10. Are we talking about Daniel Jones being here? Are we talking about paying him $32 million a year? We're probably not. Not going to lie. We're probably, even if he had the same numbers now, we're probably not. Why? Because it's funny. Because you're looking at guys now who they're saying, well, we don't want to pay him this elite money. Well, if you don't want to pay him elite money, but you say that he's better than Kirk Cousins, then you got to pay him Kirk Cousins money. If you don't believe he's better than Kirk Cousins and you think he's on the Jimmy G level, then Jimmy G's looking for $30 million in his next contract. Well, maybe that's where you want to go. It's something to think about throughout the draft. Another thing I want to talk about is people looking at these quarterbacks in this era, and I heard a rumor that someone said, well, this guy from Tennessee only throws 10-yard passes. Are you serious right now? Are you serious right now? I mean, they have Jalen Hyatt as one of the best players in the country. The quarterback of that team threw for 3,100 yards and 27 touchdowns and didn't even play the full year. He averaged 9.9 yards a pass attempt. You know how many pass attempt yards Daniel Jones had in college? 6.5. 6.5. But the guy from Tennessee only throws 10-yard routes. You can't look at it like that. Okay? Mind you, the Giants only throw 10-yard routes as well. I mean, Daniel Jones averaged 6.6 yards a pass attempt. That's been his average. What is an average? An average is what I am going to get every time from a guy, or most of the time from a guy. Damian Lillard, let's say he scores, 17 points a game, which probably is an elite scorer, but it's up there. He's probably averaging 20 points. But for this argument, 17 points a game. I know that every game I'm going to get roughly 17 points from Damian Lillard. That's what the average is. He might go higher. Sometimes he might go lower. But at the end of the day, when the season's all said and done, it's going to equate to 17 points a game, which means that's what I'm looking to get every time. Daniel Jones, those are the numbers you're looking to get. If he's getting 150 yards a game, well, then you're banking that he gets 150 yards a game. Now, if he's getting 200 yards a game, you see what I'm saying here? It has nothing to do with the stats. Fantasy has ruined the stats because fantasy makes you makes these stats, not stats up, but makes the stats more glorified than they need to be, right? So a guy who never played gets blasted because guess what? He's playing on Kansas City. And Kansas City, they've taken Travis Kelce out, so now they have Juju Smith-Schuster, and he has a big game. But if you look at Juju Smith-Schuster's career, he's averaged about 900 yards a year no matter where he's went. Same thing with Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, 3 out of 4 years he's played, has averaged over 700 yards and 3 touchdowns, at least. And so what I'm trying to say is, while stats, some people say stats for losers, stats don't tell everything, but they give you an idea of what a player can do. They give you an idea of what you're going to get day in and day out, night in and night out. And if you got a guy who you deem is better, you don't just say, well, we're going to keep this guy because we have one. It's like, I look at it like this. If you have a chance to get something new at a low price, are you going to wait and say, well, I'll wait and see, and then next time that comes around, it's going to be a higher priced item? Or are you going to take that item now and say, hey, let me get it now, and I can do this? For example, you get a car, right? You keep your car, your family gets bigger. Do you keep the same car just because in spite, or do you go and try to see if you can make a deal? You probably see if you can make a deal. Now, you're in the driver's seat, no pun intended, because you have a car, so you're not in a desperate need to get a car. Unlike a person who might be in an accident, right, who needs a car desperately to get to work because theirs just got totaled, that's a different story. Now they're gonna be desperate scrambling. The person with the car is not necessarily going to do that. They're going to look for the right deal. They want to get it at the right price, right? Because and if you like in the car business, like in the housing industry, if you see something you like, you got to get it now because you never know when it's going to come back, right? Next year it's a different year. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the Giants are going to make the playoffs next year. There's no guarantees, none. So my point is, when you're building, these are the type of things you want to look at. You don't necessarily want to look at the stats as the end-all, be-all, but that kind of gives you an idea. It's like your resume, right? You put your resume down in front of somebody, and they look at it and they say, Adam versus, Joanne, right? Sorry, Joanne. I don't know if there's a Joanne out there listening, but sorry, right? Joanne has blah, 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 right? Maybe Joanne's met the boss, and the boss likes Joanne, but Adam has better credentials, right? But if you look at just the names, biasy would say, hey, he's going to go pick Joanne over Adam. Same thing. Kirk Cousins. He has better numbers and a better resume. People aren't going to pick Kirk Cousins. Some people aren't in Giant Nation aren't going to pick Kirk Cousins because they like Daniel Jones, who's had one season of productivity over the fact that Kirk Cousins has more seasons of productivity, but they don't like Kirk Cousins, so they're going to pick the guy that they like. That happens. But if you look at it in a business sense, I don't want to give a guy like Daniel Jones, no offense to you, Daniel, a lot of money off of 1 year of solid production. If this was let's say year 3 of solid production, and he's been averaging this, yeah, we can talk about it. One season in a new offense, yes, you did. Yes, you did good. Yes, we made the playoffs. How much of that was Brian Daboll? How much of that was Daniel Jones? When you come in the middle and you meet and you say, okay, well, you've improved, but yet you didn't improve, and these are the passers that are ahead of you. We're going to give you roughly this number. That's how business works. He's going to shoot for the moon, but he's going to probably get the sky. You know what I mean? He's not going to get everything that he wants. He's not going to get all the allowed, right? He shoots for the stars, but he's going to get the clouds, right? That's what he's going to get. And that's not bad. But to me, if I'm Joe Schoen, I am not putting my career on the line for a guy I didn't draft, dump all this money in, and if he fails, I look like an idiot. If he does well, great. But then you have an asset now you can use moving forward. If you say, hey, listen, we want to move forward here and go younger or go cheaper. It happens all the time across the NFL, especially if you haven't won much. So we'll see what happens. It's a great start to the NFL season. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hurry Up. I'll be back around, hopefully with premium takes, but definitely with Hurry Up as we go to talk about some of the prospects, maybe where the Giants are going to go. But that was my little take. I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.